prove it. Just 2 words. But they made a room full of powerful men hold their breath. Standing before them was Lily Carter, 14 years old, daughter of a maid who cleaned the floors of Sterling Tower. Across from her sat Edward Sterling himself, the billionaire who built a tech empire from nothing, eyes cold as steel. She had just accused someone in his inner circle. "There's a spy in this office. Someone is selling your secrets." The executives exchanged amused glances. A child talking about corporate espionage, ridiculous. But Lily didn't blink. "I can prove it, sir." Edward leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Then prove it, little girl." No one knew that in just a few hours those 2 words would shake a billion-dollar empire to its core and teach one of the world's most powerful men that intelligence and loyalty don't come from titles. They come from a heart brave enough to speak the truth. Sterling Tower stood like a glass monument in the heart of Manhattan, 70 floors of ambition reaching toward the sky. On the 30th floor, where executive decisions shaped the future of technology, Anna Carter pushed her cleaning cart quietly through the hallways. She had worked here for 6 years. Invisible, reliable, safe. Behind her, carrying a worn backpack and a small notebook, walked Lily. 14 years old, dark eyes always watching, always thinking. Her mother brought her here every afternoon after school. While Anna cleaned the conference rooms and executive offices, Lily sat in the corner of the waiting area, homework spread across her lap. But she rarely looked at her textbooks. Instead, she watched. She noticed the man in the navy suit who always left his briefcase unlocked, the woman who made personal calls in the stairwell, the security guard who fell asleep at his desk every Thursday at 3. Lily saw patterns where others saw routine. She wrote them down in her notebook, not because she was looking for trouble, but because her mind couldn't stop connecting dots. One evening, as her mother vacuumed the executive suite, Lily sat near the door sketching diagrams for her science project. That's when she saw him. Mr. Cole, Vice President of Finance. Tall gray suit, always polite to her mother. He walked into Edward Sterling's office, glanced around, then moved quickly to the desk. Lily's pencil stopped. Cole pulled a silver USB drive from his pocket and plugged it into the laptop, the one Edward had left open when he rushed to a board meeting minutes earlier. The screen glowed. Cole's fingers moved fast across the keyboard. Lily could see the file name reflected in his glasses. researchconfidential.pdf. He was copying it. Her heart pounded, but she didn't move. She just watched, memorizing every detail. The time, 6:42 p.m. The file size, 378 megabytes. The way his hand shook slightly as he ejected the drive. When her mother emerged from the conference room, Lily closed her notebook and stood. "Mom," she said quietly as they walked toward the elevator. "I think someone is stealing." Anna's face went pale. She grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her into the empty stairwell. "What did you see?" "Mr. Cole. He copied a file from Mr. Sterling's computer." Anna's grip tightened. "Lily, listen to me. We don't get involved in their business. Do you understand? People like us, we stay quiet. That's how we stay safe." "But Mom..." "No." Anna's voice cracked with fear. "You didn't see anything. Promise me." Lily looked into her mother's eyes and saw something she'd never seen before. Terror. So she nodded. "Okay. I promise." But as they rode the elevator down, Lily opened her notebook and wrote one line, June 14th, Cole, USB drive, 6:42 p.m., file research, confidential. Over the next 3 weeks, Lily kept watching. She saw Cole stay late when everyone else went home. She noticed him sending emails on his phone in the parking garage. She recorded the dates, the times, the small nervous gestures he made when Edward walked past. Her notebook filled with evidence she didn't yet know how to use. Until the morning everything changed. The morning began with chaos. Edward Sterling arrived at his office before sunrise. Phone pressed to his ear, his face carved from stone. The headline had broken overnight. Sterling Dynamics secret chip design. Leaked competitor announces identical product. The Aegis chip. 3 years of research. Billions in projected revenue. Gone. Someone had sold them out. By 8 a.m., every executive had been summoned to the main conference room. The door closed with a heavy click that echoed like a gunshot. Anna received the emergency text. Clean conference room immediately after meeting. Confidential. She gathered her supplies, and as always, Lily followed. They stood outside the glass-walled room watching through the frosted panels as Edward paced like a caged lion. His voice, though muffled, carried the weight of fury. Someone in this building betrayed us. Someone with access to encrypted files. I want to know who. Silence swallowed the room. Lily's fingers tightened around her notebook. She knew. She had known for weeks. The executives shifted in their seats. Mr. Cole sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, expression neutral. But Lily saw what others missed, the slight twitch in his jaw, the way his left foot tapped beneath the table. If no one speaks, Edward continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous, then we investigate everyone, every email, every login, every… The door opened. Anna gasped. Lily, no! But Lily had already stepped inside. The room turned as one. 14 pairs of eyes landed on a small girl in a faded jacket clutching a notebook to her chest. Edward's expression darkened. Who are you? Lily Carter, sir. Her voice was steady despite the hammering of her heart. I'm Anna's daughter. This is a private meeting. I know who leaked your files. The words hung in the air like smoke. Then someone laughed, a sharp, disbelieving bark. Others joined in a ripple of condescension spreading through the room. Edward, really, one executive said, smirking. Are we taking tips from children now? But Edward raised a hand, silencing them. His eyes locked onto Lily's. You know who the spy is? Yes, sir. Who? Lily's gaze moved to Mr. Cole. Him. The laughter died instantly. Cole's face remained calm, but his knuckles whitened against the table. This is absurd. A child's fantasy. She's 14, another executive said. She probably saw someone on their computer and thought, I saw him copy your files. Lily interrupted, looking only at Edward. 3 weeks ago, June 14th at 6:42 p.m., he used a silver USB drive. The file was called Researchers Confidential PDF, 378 megabytes. The room fell silent. Edward studied her face, searching for deception, finding none. That's a serious accusation. I know, sir. Do you have proof? Lily hesitated. Not yet, but I know how to get it. Cole stood abruptly. Mr. Sterling, I've worked for this company for 8 years. You're going to believe some girl who… Sit down, Edward said quietly. Cole froze, then slowly lowered himself back into his chair. Edward turned back to Lily. The room seemed to shrink around them, two people in a standoff, while everyone else faded to background noise. What do you need? 15 minutes in your office, alone, murmurs erupted. You can't be serious, someone protested. She's a child. She could damage… 15 minutes. Edward repeated, his eyes never leaving Lily's. If you're wrong, you and your mother will never set foot in this building again. Anna's breath caught in her throat. And if I'm right? Lily asked. Edward's expression didn't change. Then someone is going to prison. He stood gesturing toward the door. 15 minutes. Starting now. Lily walked past the table of skeptical faces, past Mr. Cole, whose eyes followed her with something between rage and fear, past her mother, whose face was frozen in terror. She stepped into Edward Sterling's office. Behind her, the door closed. The clock began ticking. The office was vast. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, the city spreading out like a circuit board beneath the morning sun. Lily stood in the center, her notebook clutched in both hands, and took a breath. She had 15 minutes to prove what she knew was true, or lose everything. Behind the glass wall, executives watched like spectators at an execution. Her mother stood, frozen hands pressed to her mouth. Mr. Cole leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, the hint of a smile playing at his lips. He didn't believe she could do it. Lily set her notebook on Edward's desk and opened it to the pages she'd filled over 3 weeks. Dates, times, observations, all written in her careful handwriting. She moved to the secondary laptop, the one Edward used for internal backups, the one most people forgot existed. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. First, she needed access to the system logs. She'd watched the IT department enough times to know where they were stored. She navigated to the admin panel, her heart pounding. Most people would need a password, but Lily had noticed something weeks ago. Edward's backup system auto-logged into the shared network drive every morning at 6 a.m. It was still logged in. She opened the security access history, scrolling through hundreds of entries. Names, timestamps, files accessed. There, a secondary account, eSupport 2. It had accessed the Research Confidential folder on June 14th at 10:14 p.m. hours after Edward had left for a conference in Boston. She took a screenshot, her hands steadier now. But logs could be explained away. She needed something undeniable. Lily remembered the security cameras. She'd seen the guard station enough times, watched him type the access code when he thought no one was looking. She opened the security system interface, praying it hadn't been changed. 4, 7, 2, 9. The system opened. A grid of camera feeds filled the screen, lobbies, hallways, executive offices. She scrolled to the archive, searching for June 14th. The file loaded slowly. Too slowly. 10 minutes left. Finally, the footage appeared. She fast-forwarded to 6:30 p.m., watching the timestamp race forward. There. 6:42 p.m. Camera angle. Executive suite, East Corridor. A figure in a gray suit entered Edward's office, looking over his shoulder before disappearing inside. Lily's breath caught. She zoomed in, enhancing the frame. Mr. Cole's face clear as day. She continued watching. 2 minutes later, Cole emerged, slipping something into his pocket, something silver and small. The USB drive. Lily exported the video clip to the desktop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. But she wasn't finished. She opened the email archive, searching for Cole's sent messages. If he was selling information, there had to be communication. She filtered by date range, June to July. External recipients only. Nothing obvious appeared. He was too smart for that. Then Lily remembered something her computer science teacher had taught her. People often schedule emails to send later, making them look like they were sent during normal business hours. She checked the scheduled send folder. There, 3 emails scheduled to send at 8 a.m. but composed at 11 p.m., all to the same encrypted address, blackboxtechsecuremail.com. The subject lines were vague, but the attached files had familiar names. Research Confidential Part 1, Research Confidential Part 2. Lily's hands shook as she took another screenshot. 5 minutes left. She created a new folder on the desktop labeled Evidence, and dragged everything inside: the access logs, the video footage, the scheduled emails. Then she did one more thing. She opened Cole's user profile in the system and checked his device history. Every computer, phone, or tablet that had logged into his account was recorded. There, 3 weeks ago, personal MacBook Air had accessed the Sterling network from Cole's credentials at 11:17 p.m. Personal device, company network, unauthorized access. Lily saved the entire device log. 2 minutes left. She organized everything into a single presentation file, adding timestamps and notes explaining each piece of evidence. When she finished, she stepped back from the desk, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone outside could hear it. The door opened. Edward walked in, followed by the executives, by her mother, by Cole, whose confident smile had begun to fade. Lily turned the laptop screen toward them. "This is the access log," she said, her voice clear, despite the adrenaline flooding her system. On June 14th at 10:14 p.m., someone using the account eSupport2 accessed your confidential research folder. You were in Boston that night, but Mr. Cole was here. She clicked to the next image. This is security footage from 6:42 p.m. that same day. That's Mr. Cole entering your office. That's him leaving 2 minutes later with a USB drive. She clicked again. These are scheduled emails from his account to an encrypted address. The files attached are your stolen research, broken into parts to avoid detection. The room was silent except for the hum of the laptop's fan. Edward stepped closer, studying each piece of evidence. His expression revealed nothing. Finally, he turned to Cole. "Explain." Cole's face had gone white. She must have fabricated the security footage." Edward's voice was ice. "The system logs your own scheduled emails. I needed..." Cole's composure cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "You don't understand the pressure the debts they offered me." "Enough." Edward pressed a button on his desk. Within seconds, 2 security officers appeared at the door. "Escort Mr. Cole to the holding room. Call the authorities." As they led him away, Cole's eyes met Lily's, filled with hatred, with disbelief that a child had destroyed him. The door closed. Edward looked at Lily. Really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. "You just saved this company," he said quietly. Lily closed her notebook. "I just told the truth, sir." The interrogation room was small and cold, lit by fluorescent lights that hummed like dying insects. Mr. Cole sat across from 2 federal investigators. His expensive suit wrinkled, his confident mask shattered. It took them less than 3 hours to break him completely. The truth spilled out like poison from a wound. He had been working for Nexus Corp, Sterling's biggest competitor, for nearly 4 months. They'd approached him at a conference in Singapore, promising him $2 million and the executive position if he could deliver Sterling's chip designs. Cole had debts, a gambling problem he'd hidden for years, a lifestyle that consumed more than his salary could provide. So he'd said yes. The USB drive contained encryption-breaking software. He'd copied files in pieces, careful never to take too much at once. The scheduled emails were sent through multiple proxy servers, nearly impossible to trace. Nearly. He'd been so careful, so methodical. And a 14-year-old girl had unraveled everything with a notebook and 15 minutes. When Edward received the full report that evening, he sat alone in his office, staring at the city lights blinking in the darkness. He'd trusted Cole, promoted him, given him access to the company's most valuable secrets. And he'd been blind. The next morning, Edward called an emergency company-wide meeting. Sterling Tower's main auditorium filled with employees, engineers, accountants, security staff, cleaning crews. Everyone. Anna Carter stood in the back, holding Lily's hand, both of them uncertain why they'd been summoned. Edward took the stage, his presence commanding instant silence. "Yesterday," he began, his voice echoing through the space, "this company faced the greatest security breach in its history. Corporate espionage that could have destroyed everything we've built." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The perpetrator has been arrested. Federal charges have been filed. But that's not why I've gathered you here." He paused, his eyes scanning the room until they found Lily. "The breach was discovered and stopped by someone most of you have never noticed. Someone who doesn't have a business degree or a 6-figure salary. Someone who simply paid attention when everyone else looked away." He gestured toward the back. "Lily Carter, please come here." Every head turned. Lily's face flushed. "Mom, Go," Anna whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. "Go, baby." Lily walked down the aisle, hundreds of eyes following her whispers, building like wind through trees. When she reached the stage, Edward extended his hand. She shook it, her small hand disappearing in his. "This young woman," Edward said to the crowd, "saved Sterling Dynamics. Not with wealth or power or connections, with observation, with courage, with an unwillingness to let evil succeed just because it wore a nice suit." The auditorium erupted in applause, but Lily stepped closer to the microphone and the clapping faded. "I didn't do it for the company," she said, her voice small but clear. "I did it because I saw something wrong and I couldn't just ignore it." She looked at Edward, then at the sea of faces. "My mom taught me that it doesn't matter who you are. What matters is what you do when you see something that isn't right. Everyone here has that same choice every single day." The silence that followed was different, heavier, thoughtful. Edward felt something shift in his chest, an emotion he hadn't experienced in years. Humility. "What would you like as a reward?" he asked quietly, just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Name it. Anything." Lily smiled, the first real smile since this had all begun. "Can my mom leave work an hour early today? She's really tired." Laughter rippled through the crowd, warm and genuine. Edward laughed too, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep and forgotten. "She can leave early every day," he said. "And Lily, when you're ready, there's a place for you here. In the technology division, the security team, wherever you want." That evening, after the crowds had dispersed and the building grew quiet, Edward returned to his office. He pulled up the security footage from the previous day, Watching Lily work with focused intensity, her small fingers navigating complex systems, her eyes never leaving the screen. She moved like someone 3 times her age with purpose and precision. He thought about his own daughter, estranged, now living in Paris, someone he barely knew anymore. He'd been too busy building an empire to build a relationship. He thought about the executives who'd laughed when Lily entered the conference room. The ones who'd dismissed her because she was young, because she was the daughter of a maid, because she didn't fit their definition of important. And he thought about Cole, who he'd trusted implicitly, who'd betrayed him without hesitation. Edward had built his entire life on logic, on numbers, on calculated risks, but he'd forgotten how to see people clearly. A child had reminded him. He picked up his phone and typed a message to his assistant. Establish the Sterling Future Scholarship. Full ride. Technology and engineering. First recipient Lily Carter. Then he added, anonymous donor. He sent it and turned off his computer. Outside his window, the city glowed. Somewhere in that vast maze of lights, a girl sat with her mother in their small apartment, eating dinner, laughing about something simple. Not knowing that her life had just changed forever. Not needing to know. Because she'd already done the right thing, and that was enough. By morning, the story had exploded. 14-year-old genius exposes billion-dollar corporate spy. Maid's daughter saves tech empire. The girl who saw what executives missed. Every major news outlet carried some version of the headline. Within hours, Lily's name trended across social media platforms, her story shared millions of times. Someone had leaked it, a junior employee who'd been in the auditorium who'd recorded Edward's speech on their phone. The video went viral. By noon, news vans surrounded Sterling Tower. Reporters camped outside Anna's apartment building, cameras, ready, questions prepared. Anna kept the curtains closed, her phone buzzing endlessly with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Mom, what do we do? Lily sat on the couch watching her own face flash across the television screen. The reporter called her Cybergirl, a nickname that made her cringe. We stay quiet, Anna said, her voice tight with fear. This will pass. It has to pass. But it didn't pass. Interview requests flooded in. Book deals, speaking engagements. A Hollywood producer wanted to option her life story. Edward's legal team fielded hundreds of inquiries, protecting the Carters as best they could. Then the invitation arrived. A formal letter on thick cream paper delivered by courier. Sterling Dynamics requests the honor of your presence at a company gala celebrating innovation and integrity. Anna read it twice, her hands shaking. We can't go to this, she whispered. Lily, we don't belong in that world. Mom, no. Anna's voice cracked. These people, they're not like us. They'll smile and take pictures and then forget we exist. Or worse, they'll make us into something we're not. A story. A symbol. Anything but real. Lily took her mother's hands. Then we don't go. We don't need their party. Anna pulled her daughter close, holding her like she might disappear. The next day, Edward received their polite decline. He sat in his office reading Anna's carefully worded response and understood. They wanted their privacy, their normal life. The thing fame would steal if they let it. He respected that. So he made a decision. Instead of a public celebration, Edward arranged something different. A trust fund established anonymously through a third-party law firm. Enough to cover Lily's education, undergraduate, graduate, whatever she chose. He included a single condition: she could never know who funded it until she turned 25. Why? His lawyer asked. Because, Edward said quietly, if she knows it came from me, she'll think she owes me something. She doesn't. I owe her. But not everyone was kind. In the boardroom, certain shareholders grew agitated. This story makes us look incompetent, one complained during a closed session. A child discovered what our security team missed. What does that say about our systems? It says we were betrayed by someone we trusted. Edward replied, his voice dangerously calm. It says we're vulnerable. Our stock dropped 3% this week. And it would have dropped 30% if she hadn't stopped the leak. Edward stood, his shadow falling across the table. If you're embarrassed that a 14-year-old girl is smarter than our entire executive team, then maybe you should be asking different questions. The room fell silent. Like what? Someone finally ventured. Edward's eyes were steel. Like why we stopped paying attention to the world around us. Why we stopped valuing observation over credentials. Why we built walls so high that we couldn't see the threats right in front of us. He leaned forward, palms flat on the mahogany table. If a child can spot a spy, the problem isn't our security system. The problem is that we forgot how to look. The quote was transcribed, leaked, and within hours became a viral sensation of its own. Motivational accounts shared it. Business professors assigned it as discussion material. It appeared on posters and coffee mugs. Edward hated the attention, but he let it stand. Because it was true. 2 weeks after the story broke, the media frenzy began to fade. New scandals emerged. Other stories claimed the headlines. Lily returned to school where she was briefly famous among her classmates before life settled back into routine. But something had changed. Teachers paid closer attention when she raised her hand. Other students asked her questions they'd never bothered to ask before. She wasn't invisible anymore. One evening as Anna prepared dinner in their small kitchen, Lily sat at the table doing homework. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked quietly, speaking up. Lily looked up from her math textbook, considering the question. She thought about the fear in her mother's eyes, the reporters outside their door, the way strangers now recognized her face. But she also thought about Mr. Cole in handcuffs, about the employees who still had jobs because the company survived, about Edward's laugh, genuine and surprised when she'd asked for her mother to leave work early. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret telling the truth." Anna smiled, blinking back tears. "Neither do I, baby. Neither do I." Outside, rain began to fall, washing the city clean. Inside, they were safe, and that was enough. The Sterling Foundation Youth Technology Center occupied the entire 5th floor of a renovated building in Brooklyn. Glass walls, modern workstations, 3D printers humming in the corner, rows of computers where teenagers coded, designed, and built the future. Lily sat at her station, fingers flying across the keyboard, headphones blocking out the world. On her screen, lines of code forming something new. iLog, an AI-powered security system that detected unusual access patterns in real time. It learned user behavior, flagged anomalies, and sent alerts before breaches could occur. She'd been working on it for 6 months. Her mentor, a former cybersecurity specialist named Dr. Sarah Chen, leaned over her shoulder. "That's brilliant," Sarah said, scrolling through the code. "This could actually work." "It does work," Lily replied, pulling up a demonstration. "I tested it on a simulation of Sterling's old system. It would have caught Cole's first unauthorized access within 48 hours. Sarah shook her head in amazement. "You're 15 years old." Lily smiled. 16 next month. The program had changed her life in ways she never expected. Full scholarship. Access to equipment most universities couldn't afford. Mentors who treated her ideas seriously. But the best part was the other kids, brilliant minds from every background, all given the same chance she'd been given. The door opened, and Edward Sterling walked in. He visited once a month quietly, without press or fanfare. He'd speak with students, review projects, offer advice from decades of experience. When he reached Lily's station, she pulled off her headphones. "Mr. Sterling." "Lily." He studied her screen. "What are you building?" She explained iLog, walking him through the architecture, the learning algorithms, the potential applications. Edward listened, asking sharp questions, nodding at her answers. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "What do you think about trust?" he asked finally. The question caught her off guard. "Trust?" "Yes. After everything that happened, do you trust more easily or less?" Lily considered, watching her classmates work around them, collaborating, laughing, building things together. "I think trust isn't about positions or titles," she said slowly. "It's about who's willing to listen when someone tells the truth, even if that truth is uncomfortable." Edward's expression softened. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" "Myself, before I forgot what it meant to dream." He gestured to her screen. "Keep building this. The world needs people who see what others miss." That evening, the foundation hosted its annual innovation showcase. Parents, donors, and tech journalists filled the exhibition hall. Lily stood beside her display, explaining iLog to anyone who stopped. Most listeners were polite but skeptical. A teenager's security project. Interesting but hardly revolutionary. Then Edward approached the microphone at the front of the room. "Before we conclude tonight," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd, "I want to share a story. A year ago, someone in this room taught me the most important lesson of my career." Eyes turned. Whispers spread. "She taught me that intelligence doesn't require a degree. That courage doesn't need permission. And that sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who see most clearly." He looked directly at Lily. She was a maid's daughter who noticed what executives ignored. And she saved my company because she believed truth mattered more than comfort. The room fell silent. If you learn nothing else tonight, learn this: listen to the voices that don't demand to be heard. Pay attention to the ones who simply do what's right. Applause filled the hall, not polite, not obligatory, but genuine. Lily felt her face flush, but this time she didn't look away. After the event ended, as families filtered out into the Brooklyn night, Edward found Lily one last time. He handed her a small pin, the Sterling Dynamics logo in silver. "This was given to me," he said, "when I first believed I could build something meaningful. Now I'm giving it to you." Lily turned it over in her palm. On the back, engraved in tiny letters, "To the girl who saw what no one else did." "Thank you," she whispered. Edward smiled, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes earned through hard lessons and harder truths. "No, Lily, thank you." He left, disappearing into the evening crowd. Lily stood there, the pin warm in her hand, the future stretching out before her like an unwritten line of code. Infinite possibilities. All waiting to be built. Morning light filtered through the apartment windows, soft and golden. Anna poured tea at the small kitchen table, while Lily sat by the window, a book open in her lap. The apartment was still small, still modest. But it felt different now, not because anything had changed on the outside, but because everything had changed within. On the table sat the silver pin Edward had given her, catching the sunlight. Anna noticed it. "That's beautiful." Lily picked it up, reading the engraving again. "He called me the girl who saw what no one else did." "And were you?" Lily thought about it. "I wasn't special, Mom. I just paid attention. Anyone could have done what I did." Anna set down her teacup, reaching across to take her daughter's hand. "That's where you're wrong, baby. Most people see, but very few actually look. And even fewer have the courage to speak when they find something wrong. You taught me that." "No." Anna's eyes glistened. "I taught you to stay quiet and stay safe. You taught yourself to be brave." Outside, the city hummed with life, millions of people moving through their ordinary days, most of them never making headlines, never being called heroes. Just living, working, doing their best. Lily looked out at the world and understood something fundamental. She hadn't saved a company because she was special. She'd done it because she refused to let wrong be right, even when everyone told her to look away. "I didn't save the company, Mom," she said softly. "I just proved that anyone can matter, no matter where they come from or what their job title is." Anna smiled through her tears. "And you proved it beautifully." The tea grew cold as they sat together, mother and daughter, watching the morning unfold. No cameras, no reporters, no viral videos, just peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Sometimes courage doesn't arrive with fanfare or glory. Sometimes it's just a quiet voice saying, "I saw something wrong," when everyone else looks away. Lily Carter's story reminds us that truth doesn't need power to survive. It only needs one person brave enough to speak it. Intelligence isn't measured by age, degrees, or titles. It's measured by the willingness to observe, to think, and to act when action is needed. And real trust. It doesn't come from authority or status. It comes from respect, the kind given to those who value truth over comfort. We live in a world that often tells us to stay in our lane, to mind our business, to let someone else handle the hard things. But sometimes the person who needs to act is you. Not because you're special, but because you're willing. If this story reminded you that anyone can be a hero simply by choosing to speak truth when it matters most, Comment "I choose truth" below. And don't forget to subscribe to Maid's Daughter Stories, where small voices tell the biggest truths.